The sixth source of Unitarian Universalist living tradition are the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. In short, this means paganism. But this can and is broadly defined, from Wicca to Transcendentalism, from the world religions such as Shintoism to humanists who simply walk in the woods. Nature is primal. The history of America, as I was taught, was about taming the wilderness and civilizing the savages. I started to unlearn these lessons in the 4th grade when we celebrated the first Earth Day. But that main lesson persisted. My 7th grade history teacher told me that we conquered the Indians like Moses conquered the Promised Land. I lived north of the world's largest open-pit limestone quarry. There was a gray hole south of my hometown, which was the reason everyone lived there. The lakes were for boats to carry stone to the steel mills of Gary and Pittsburgh, and to make cement for the interstates to pave the way for the automobiles of Detroit. Mother Earth was dominated. The Christianity that I was taught was male-dominated, but cracks began to appear. In 1979, a book called Women's Spirit Rising was released. It was edited by Carol Christ and Judith Plasko, and it contains short essays about feminist interpretations of religion. Most were Christian and Jewish, but there was also some exploration of paganism by the author Starhawk, who also released her first book that year. And in the same year, Unitarian Universalist Margot Adler wrote Drawing Down the Moon, a comprehensive study of paganism in America. Reaction by many in the Christian community was negative. The evangelist Pat Robertson said, "The feminist agenda is not about equal rights for women. It is about a socialist, anti-family political movement that encourages women to leave their husband, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians." Their accusation was that witchcraft is Satanism, but Satan is a Christian concept, and it simply does not apply. Christians may have used the Greek god Pan to represent their idea of Satan in the Middle Ages, but the horned god with goat's feet existed before Christianity. According to the covenant of UU Pagans, the earliest known UU pagan worship was at the 1980 UU Continental Feminist Theology Convocation held in East Lansing, Michigan, and sponsored by the Continental Women's and Religious Committee. That committee formed after the passage of the Women and Religious Resolution at GA in 1977. And in 1993, UU Paganism achieved a major accomplishment: the inclusion of a significant earth-centered and goddess image content in the denomination's new hymnal, which is the current hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition. The material began supported by the UU Federation, Women's Federation. and it included material found in the index under Earth, God, Goddess, and Spirit, and Pagan, including such songs as we sang today about autumn cold has turned the star wheel. Another accomplishment in 1995 brought Earth-centered religion to the same institutional level as other religious roots of Unitarian Universalism. The sixth source became adopted by the General Assembly in Spokane. And so I'm preaching about the sixth source today. And I think it speaks to what type of religion this is. That we look to what inspires us and we're able to incorporate new things, sometimes old things, into our understanding. And the feminist pagan movement really blossomed in Unitarian Universalism with the 1995 publication of Cakes for the Queen of Heaven by Shirley Rank. This 12-week workshop asks women to reflect on their own power in studying how the goddess was suppressed in Hebrew scriptures, and then looks to create forms that are meaningful for today. And this church has been honoring the Wheel of the Year for 2 years now, holding 8 services per year on the solstices and equinoxes and the cross quarters that fall in between. And for many years, we have celebrated the winter solstice by walking a sacred spiral created out of evergreens. And this year, this Friday, we are joined by a local pagan group who will follow our service with a pagan ball. And so this is just another way of our church expanding and creating the community and place of welcome for people of all religion in our community. There are many earth-centered traditions tied to the land in which they arose. Shintoism in Japan is tied to Amaterasu, the rising sun, and to the mountains that rise out of the ocean. Norse mythology focuses on the gods who destroy the ice giants, thus making life possible. Native Americans focus on living in harmony with the Great Spirit. And Santeria is a Caribbean mixture of African Yoruba beliefs and the Roman Catholic veneration of the saints. Indeed, Christianity has pagan aspects that are thinly veiled. Christmas was placed in December as an answer to paganism. According to Alicia Kaufman in a 2008 article in Christianity Today, the eventual choice of December 25th, made perhaps as early as 273, reflects the convergence of Origen's concern about pagan gods and the church's identification of God's Son with the celestial Son. December 25 already hosted 2 other related festivals, Natalis Solis Invicti, the Roman birth of the unconquered Son, and the birthday of Mithras, the Iranian Son of Righteousness, whose worship was popular with Roman soldiers. The winter solstice, another celebration of the sun, fell just a few days earlier. Seeing that pagans were already exalting deities with some parallels to the true deity, church leaders decided to commandeer the date and introduce a new festival. And other festivals that we don't even think as religious, like Groundhog Day on February 2nd, is one of the cross quarters, and it's known as St. Bridget's Day. And St. Bridget is a Catholic saint in Ireland whose feast just happens to be on the day where a pagan god of the same name was celebrated. March 17th, the Feast of St. Patrick, with all its greenery and spring images, very near the spring. It's not a solstice, it's an equinox. Easter is named for a German fertility goddess. And Pentecost in Judaism is the first harvest festival of the spring. And in Christianity, it became the day when they celebrated the gifts of the Holy Spirit, often called the fruits of the Spirit. And of course, Halloween, All Hallows Eve, the evening before All Saints' Day, that coordinates with the pagan nights commemorating the dead. And of course, all our Christmas greenery and lights comes back to all the Norse traditions and the Celtic traditions of bringing greenery into the house. So this circle of life and death is apparent in nature, and it's part of us whether we acknowledge it or not. The earth sustains us even when we try to ignore it. And no matter our belief, whether we celebrate the Christian path, whether we celebrate a path of a world religion, whether we celebrate a humanist path that just recognizes the earth orbiting the sun, there is a profound depth in being connected to the earth. It affects our every moment. So much of what we call civilization is the barrier that we put between us and the earth. And we need that. I enjoy being warm this morning, and I'm happy for that. But I think we often isolate ourselves from what is the source of our being, and that we have to remind ourselves often of that we are not separate from the earth, but we are part of the earth, and we are connected. May we bless and be blessed.